Happy Wednesday on Golic and Golic, still recovering from the most shocking Ravens-based news since Edgar Allan Poe dropped a banger back in 1844. Now that John Harbaugh and the Ravens are added to the fray, we'll restack the NFL coaching carousel and where it stands heading into Wild Card Weekend. Speaking of playoffs, Phil Simms going to bring the hardware to help us figure out which of these star signal callers are primed to take advantage of a playoff field without Mahomes, Burrow, and Jackson as we lay down the gauntlet. And college football's portal season taking a wild turn in the Pacific Northwest. How the battle between Washington and Damon Williams could shape the future of the sport as we continue to weather these changes. Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. here with you guys today. Chase Daniel also going to join us, talk about some of the signal callers getting ready to take their talents to the NFL. One Ty Simpson and Alabama's declared there. But, Dad, at the end of the show yesterday, we got lucky. The John Harbaugh news broke before we got off air, and we had a second to kind of sit here and digest the shock and awe of a coach that had been there for 18 years, won a Super Bowl, been so successful across so many different eras of the sport, now shown the door by this organization after their matchup and loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers over this weekend. So with 24 more hours to digest, let's start with the source of this. What do you ultimately think is the reason that this happened, that we finally had them moving on from John Harbaugh?
Well, I think just, time. It was just time. They haven't been able to get over the hump, and they're just looking to get over the hump. In 18 years, obviously there was success. Like in the first 5 years, you had a Super Bowl in there, but not as much success as of late, only getting to a certain point with what many believe is the best roster in football. And I think just looking for, a bit of a change. Again, I kind of equate it to Andy Reid, all his time in Philly, getting to the NFC Championship game a bunch, the Super Bowl one time and losing, and then they make a change. Now, they've had 4 head coaches since have the Philadelphia Eagles, but they've been to 3 Super Bowls, winning a couple of them. So, do you want to say that was successful in it working by them making that change? Again, they're on their 4th coach since Andy Reid. And I just think, maybe did they feel he wasn't in command of the locker room anymore? I've brought up a number of times the late, great Marty Schottenheimer saying 10, 12 years into your being a head coach, players start to kind of look past you a little bit in the locker room. So was there some of that involved? And you can't say the organization was impatient because it was 18 years.
You're referencing what Mike Tomlin brought up earlier today. I forget whose show he was on, but Mike Tomlin talked about this being emblematic of the day and age that we're in and said no one's got any patience. Like, they've been there. The John Harbaugh tenure in Baltimore can vote. Like, they were plenty patient with this process, even in the Lamar Jackson version of this era. So I'm with you. This situation could be about many things. A lack of patience, I don't think, is one of them.
Yeah, I think there was our backs are against the wall with this group of supposedly a very good roster, and us only getting so far, so maybe somebody else can get you there. So one side is, hey, sometimes you think the grass is greener and it's not. The other is maybe a new voice. Who knows? Do they bring in an offensive-minded head coach? I mean, what this did immediately was make John Harbaugh the number 1 prospect for other teams, and also made Baltimore the number 1 destination for a new coach.
I think it is interesting, too, thinking about, what led up to this. You mentioned bringing in an offensive mind coach. There's a lot of reports out there that John Harbaugh had been resistant to the idea of potentially moving on from Todd Monken, which fully agree with John there. Todd Monken is not your problem in the midst of all this. Like, look no further than last year when the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson had one of the best offenses in the NFL. I don't think he suddenly forgot how to call plays. So I do think if that was the straw that broke the camel's back, somewhat silly, but to your point, like, these things also end eventually. And after 18 years, there was always going to be an off-ramp that probably statistically was less stellar and less exciting to everyone involved. John Harbaugh kind of referenced as much in his statement, saying he hoped that the way that he was delivering this message would have been different, meaning maybe he retires, rides off into the sunset on his own.
Right.
But what you brought up at the end there, it gives way to now John Harbaugh becoming incredibly valuable, so much so that Adam Schefter reported on Tuesday that after John Harbaugh was released, 7 teams reached out to John Harbaugh's agent with interests. By my math, not counting the Baltimore Ravens, there were only 6 teams with open jobs at that point. So it led a lot of people to wonder and speculate the Miami Dolphins, reportedly the team that had thrown their hat into the ring, even though Mike McDaniel is still their head coach. Do you see any issue with how the Dolphins are going about this process, if that is indeed true?
The Dolphins, as far as with Mike McDaniel, trying to see if
they've
Harbaugh
reached out to
interested.
John Harbaugh while Mike McDaniel's still employed and they don't have a GM.
Obviously, that's tampering, but we know this happens. We know it goes on behind closed doors. If you think you can get Harbaugh, really, you would only do it if you know you can get Harbaugh. If you're unsure about moving on from McDaniel, but you would for Harbaugh, you better make damn well sure. Obviously, again, kind of backdoor tampering there, that you could get him, that he would sign on the dotted line. And I don't know if Harbaugh would. I mean, I still think the best job available, I would say, would be the Giants. And you know, that's what Harbaugh is going to do. Harbaugh is 63 years old. He's won a Super Bowl. He's used to a winning team. He's not going to go to a rebuild. He's going to go to a team that he thinks has the best chance, the quickest to get a championship.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think this reeks of the Dolphins trying to show their fans, look, we tried, even though I don't think there's any way in hell John Harbaugh is coming down there to take that job, given what we know the state of things, most specifically the quarterback situation there. But if we're going to talk about quarterback John Harbaugh, where the Ravens go from here, let's do it with our next guest, Brian Wacker, kind enough to join us now, lead Ravens reporter for the Baltimore Sun. Brian, appreciate you giving us some time today. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Let's start with the quarterback and the head coach here. Obviously, in the wake of this and in the lead up, there have been a lot of reporting about the nature of John Harbaugh's relationship with Lamar Jackson. Based on what you know, what can you tell us about what the characterization of that has been this season and down the stretch leading up to this?
Well, it's certainly been a topic of conversation with them down the stretch of the season. And John Harbaugh, to his credit, said, look, I have an A++ relationship with Lamar Jackson. Now, whether that's really the case, who knows? Look, Lamar dealt with a number of injuries this year. Last 2 months of the season, he basically missed a day of practice every single week, dealing with various maladies. So I'm sure that was a little bit of a point of frustration for the coach. It is what it is. But look, you don't make this move like this, an 18-year head coach, without talking to your franchise quarterback. So what input did Lamar Jackson have? It's difficult to say at this point. But again, if you're making this change, if you're Steve Bisciotti, if you're Eric DeCosta, the guy you pay the most money to, who is the franchise quarterback, the face of the organization, he's at least part of the thought or decision process if he's not directly involved entirely.
So going forward, obviously, that's what we do. They're going to find a new coach. Do you think Lamar Jackson will be talked to about candidates for a new head coach?
Well, yeah, you would certainly think so. And, there's been a number of names that have been mentioned out there, of course, from Jesse Minter, of course, has strong ties to the organization. Anthony Weaver, I know the Ravens have requested to speak with him, of course, former Ravens player and their former defensive line coach here in Baltimore. Clint Kubiak, another guy, his father, Gary, of course, you guys will remember, was their offensive coordinator back in 2014. And he's now Clint is the coordinator out in Seattle under former Ravens defensive coordinator, Mike Macdonald. So a lot of, interconnectivity between all those names, as we know. So I would expect them to not only, even though they're looking for change and a fresh voice, you don't want to completely change direction here. Steve Bisciotti's been very adamant about wanting to win now, and they have a roster. If you look at it, guys, 11 Pro Bowlers last year that came back, 6 Pro Bowlers this year. So they're built to win now. And as much as Eric DeCosta has talked about there not being, windows of opportunity never really closing, you certainly look at it with Lamar Jackson as he goes into year 9 next year. There's only going to be so many opportunities. So they need to have some continuity, but also have a fresh voice.
A lot of times we see sort of the reverb from one head coaching style to another in the next hire. John Harbaugh, notably, former special teams coach, so not necessarily flip-flopping offense or defense, but you mentioned a bunch of candidates. Is there any pressure to go for an offensive-minded head coach, given the fact that a lot of this is tied to maximizing Lamar's window?
Sure, I think that's certainly part of the case, and that's why you would look at, say, Clint Kubiak. But I also think on the flip side, guys, you got to remember this defense 2 years ago was historically great. The first to lead the NFL in sacks, takeaways, and points allowed in the same season. So it's been quite a precipitous fall for that unit. They struggled last year, turned things around the second half of the season. Kind of the same thing that happened again this year. Struggled early, turned things around a bit. Still, ultimately, were not a great defense. We saw that, of course. Kyle Hamilton goes out of that Steelers game, and instantly everything changes for that defense. Steelers able to take advantage. So to me, I think you actually maybe want to go defense, but get a guy that Lamar Jackson obviously is on the same page with.
So you mentioned Kubiak, you mentioned Minter, you mentioned Weaver. All would be first-time head coaches. Do we think that's a smart move with a veteran roster with the window of opportunity still open to go with a first-time head coach who for the first time will be sitting at the big desk answering all the questions?
Well, it's certainly a risk you take. Another guy perhaps, Cliff Kingsbury, who does have that head coaching experience out in Arizona, and of course was at the center of Jaden Daniels' success his rookie year, just down I-95 here. So that said, we also have to remember that when Steve Bisciotti hired John Harbaugh back in 2008, the guy he originally wanted to hire was Jason Garrett. He goes with the unconventional pick in John Harbaugh, who was a relative unknown at that point. He was better known for being Jim's brother, of course, by that point, a longtime special teams coach in Philadelphia and then defensive backs coach. So I would not be surprised, if they do go with a first-time head coach because Bisciotti has shown a willingness to take an unconventional route.
Going to be fascinating. Certainly lots for you guys to cover. Everyone, check out Brian's great work at the Baltimore Sun, baltimoresun.com. His Twitter, Brian Wacker 1. Brian, we appreciate the time on what sure has been a crazy 24 hours. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Brian. The only problem that I see, I definitely see a problem with a first-time head coach with an experienced roster like this. But let's say they do, and let's say they go the defensive side, right? An Anthony Weaver or a Jesse Minter. The only problem I see there is now the most important hire is the offensive coordinator, right? For Lamar Jackson and the offense. And then what happens if you're successful with that offensive coordinator and the Baltimore offense? That coordinator becomes a head coaching candidate other places almost immediately. So you risk if you're a defensive-minded head coach and bring in an O coordinator who is successful, that O coordinator getting hired away as a head coach somewhere.
Yeah, I know that's always been the common refrain and difficulty for defensive head coaches, but I think we might be getting close to that being less true or the paradigm shifting. I mean, look around the playoffs and the team that we're talking about having the best chance right now. It's the Seahawks. It's the Denver Broncos who are sitting as the 1 seed. The Houston Texans are looked at as one of the most dangerous teams in the postseason. The Rams, who have been looked at for a lot of times as the best team in the NFL, have a defense that on their best day when the secondary is dialed in can be really good. Like, these coordinators have made it happen. Like, hell, Mike McDonald in Seattle in 2 years has established himself as one of the best head coaches in the sport and has their team well positioned to make a run at a Super Bowl this year. So I understand those are problems that come up, but that cuts both ways. Like, look what's happened to the Baltimore Ravens defense since Mike McDonald left. Look at what they were before he came over there. Like, I do think it's time to give those guys their just due and say, hey, it's not just as easy to replace it on the other side either if you have a Jesse Minter on your staff. If the Vikings lose Brian Flores, and now all of a sudden they're sitting there with the offense with quarterback questions for the first time in a while and a defense that's no longer going to go out here and drown opposing offenses, life can get pretty hard that way too. So I think what it all boils down to is You find the coach that you believe has the best skills that translate, not for him to be a great play caller in that role, but to be the one that can lead the team in the way that Seattle found with Mike McDonald, this organization found with John Harbaugh back in the day. And I think you go for that as the decision. That's why if Jesse Minter's the guy, if Brian Flores, who's a name I've seen thrown out there by our friend Mina Kimes over at ESPN, if you think they're the guy, I don't think you flinch with them being associated with defense at all.
Yeah, they got to set the culture too. That's obviously an important thing. And a defensive-minded coach, certainly, you did look at a Mike Vrabel in New England, how he sets the culture. It'll be interesting. But again, it immediately becomes the number one job. And it will be interesting. Does ownership go with someone who is familiar and has worked with that organization in the past? We'll obviously find out. And then I think we'll find out pretty quickly. I would imagine one of the first dominoes to go will be Harbaugh being hired, right? He's the best available coach out there. He takes over for Kevin Stefanski as far as best coach available. And I would think that would probably end up being the Giants, or maybe on the outside chance, Atlanta.
Yeah, certainly looks like all signs pointing to the Giants right now. For the Ravens, will be fascinating to watch what they prioritize going forward, and we'll keep you guys updated on that. Coming up next, though, the portal drama refuses to stop. We'll head out to Washington and talk about their quarterback dilemma next on Golic and Golic. Welcome back to Golic and Golic. More portal news from around college football. Former UNLV, former University of Virginia Cavalier Anthony Colandrea announced he's committing to Nebraska in the transfer portal. Started that career at Virginia, spent the last season at UNLV, threw for just under 3,500 yards, 23 touchdowns against 9 interceptions. He now takes over for the departed Dylan Raiola. Obviously, there was the Kenny Minchey flirtation there at Nebraska that had a commitment flip to Kentucky that now gives way to Colandrea coming here and trying to hopefully steady the waters in Lincoln. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. We thought maybe the Kenny Minchey of it all in the portal, our former beloved Notre Dame backup quarterback going to Nebraska and now taking his talents to Kentucky, might be the most drama that we see in this new world, the free agent frenzy of college football. And then the situation with Damon Williams popped up with the Washington Huskies. So last time on Dragon Ball Z, Damon Williams had signed a contract last week to return to Washington and be their starting quarterback, as he was this past year. Sources indicated to ESPN's Pete Thamel it was at or near the top of the market, and that Washington now is dealing with a situation where Williams announced that he wants to enter the transfer portal, and it's prompting Washington to potentially pursue legal avenues against Williams, who signed that deal. The situation has also drawn the attention of the Big Ten, who last year had to deal with Xavier Lucas's controversial transfer from Wisconsin to Miami, trying to support the Badgers in their process of potentially recouping some funds here. According to Ross Dellinger, the agreement Williams signed with UW contained a provision prohibiting him from entering the transfer portal, so the school is now refusing to officially enter his name in the portal database. What are we supposed to make of all this now, and how do you think this ends, Dad?
Oh, Mike, who knows? And again, I blame the adults. I mean, where are your rules? Can you enforce the contract? At some point, there needs to be rules. Remember when your word meant something and you committed verbally and that was it, you were committed? Now I get you got to get things in writing. Well, they have this in writing and the ink's not even dry. I get it. Players are leaving, our coach will sign a 7-year deal and a year later he'll go somewhere else. This is a week later. This young man, are we learning any kind of commitment at all? He's signed a contract, and a week later, he's trying to get out of it. And you know what? If he does, again, shame on the adults for not having rules in place and a better system in place. This will continue to be the Wild Wild West until the adults in the room figure it out and put some rules in place. Because this is the epitome of ridiculous. The ink's not even dry on a contract, and a player is trying to get out of it. So I don't know what holds up anymore.
I have a hard time seeing any of it hold up because, to your point, we know and have talked about what has to happen. It's got to be collective bargaining. Like, there's no other way through it at this point that I can see clearly that provides people what they want, which is a way to do this that has rules, that has guidelines, that has a well-worn path that we've watched happen in professional sports. And our old buddy Dan Murphy at ESPN kind of pointed out, if schools do want these contracts to mean something, because I fully believe, like Washington, the Big Ten, they're all trying to put language in these contracts that give them the best opportunity to retain these players, to try and go seek damages. If now you go and do this, Dad, at a time where we know in the portal the game of musical chairs is almost over. Most of these guys, right, and especially the names of note, have signed. You had the insane image of Sam Leavitt, the quarterback that was transferring from Arizona State, at an LSU basketball game with Lane Kiffin, while we hear the reports that Damon Williams and the school he's potentially connected to in the portal is Lane Kiffin's LSU, who might be giving him a multi-million-dollar bump in pay. But the conceit in the middle of all this that I think is going to make it really difficult to stand up if these guys want to go and sue is, what are you paying them to do? Because right now we keep kind of dancing around it with, hey, this is for your name, image, and likeness rights, and you're being paid to go out here and potentially do all that stuff and show up for these things that are all kind of amorphously around this idea that you're being paid to play football, but no one can yet agree you're being paid to play football. Otherwise, that makes you an employee. So without that central conceit in the middle of this, I don't know what leg they're going to have to stand on fully to stop him from going. They might be able to get money back, but I don't know what they're going to be able to do to stop him from going based on where we are in the sport.
Then again, I blame the adults who write up the contract, right? Write up a contract that's freaking enforceable. Write up a contract.
But what I'm saying is you can't do that unless you say, we are paying you to show up here and play football. And until they do that, which right now they can't because it would make them employees, they've put a bunch of stuff in here. But I don't think based on what we've seen, it can stop them from saying, well, no, it's still my right to go and be able to transfer whenever and wherever I want. I think that's the difficulty.
Then why are we signing anything? Why are we reporting that contracts are being signed if they're worthless? If it's a meaningless piece of paper, why sign it? If it doesn't matter, why sign it? We're signing it to make it sound like a guy, the team and the player are making a commitment to one another. If it doesn't matter, why are we signing it? Why are we signing it? And then the other side of it is, why would you want a guy coming back to your school if he wants to go somewhere else? There's that side of it as well. But again, the contract thing, why do we even have them then? If they're not enforceable, just say, I'm coming. Nope, day before, I'm going. Let all hell break loose. Until there's something, a collective bargaining agreement or something in place, what do we need a contract for if it's not enforceable? Why even sign it?
Because they're trying to put Band-Aids on bullet holes, and they're trying to plug all the leaks in the dam as best they can with the legalese as close as they can get to it. But unfortunately, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. And as we're probably going to find out here, when lawyers start collecting on billable hours, it's not going to count for much here either, I don't think, based on what we've seen. Welcome back to Golic and Golic. We got wild card weekend coming up in the NFL. Mike Golic Jr. and Mike Golic Sr. So over the next few days, we're going to take a deep dive look at each of the matchups coming up this weekend. Today, two of the juicier ones, Jags-Bills, that we know matches up the number one rush offense against the number one rush defense, and 49ers-Eagles, a rematch of a game back in 2022 in the postseason that actually prompted the changing to the emergency quarterbacking rule, where Brock Purdy hurt that UCL on the first drive, and the rest was history in a game of that magnitude. So for more on all the games that we're going to see coming up this weekend, Phil Simms, two-time Super Bowl champion, kind enough to join us. Check out Simms Complete with Phil and Matt Simms, presented by FanDuel on the Believe Network. They break down every matchup and preview the quarterbacks, airing Sundays here on FanDuel Sports Network. Phil, good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on, guys. Yes, we got 6 games this week. I did a podcast. We were kind of going over everyone. Man, it's a lot of information. You know, I'm getting old. I can't do that.
Hey, Phil, but before we get to the NFL, you and I played in the NFL against each other at the same time. We certainly missed the boat on NIL in college now. How much do you think you could have pulled in at Morehead State?
Oh, shoot, probably about $50. You know, a little bit about it. You know, hell, I was just trying to get a football they take home for the summer. No, we can't. We can't, these footballs. So, yeah. Hey, Mike, not only that, first, the NFL, I never was jealous of the players making money, but over the last year or so, I got to tell you the truth, I've been jealous. And of course, NIL, man, that would have been awesome too in college.
Yeah, no, hard to imagine what life would have been like even being a 100,000-aire in some of these college towns that we all called home here. I'm pretty sure in South Bend, Indiana, that makes you a billionaire if you've got like 300 plus grand.
Yeah, you're right. I think about that more than I go, in college to actually have money, like real money. Oh my gosh, that would have been, that's another dream. Just won't happen in my lifetime.
The amount of beer I could have bought would have been absolutely amazing.
I'd have bought the places that were selling us beer here. You'd be looking at part owner of Club Fever, Michiana's hottest nightclub. I can assure you that. Well, it's safe to say life worked out all right for you, Phil, and we appreciate it bringing you here with us today. Before we get started looking ahead at the playoff stuff, I know this last week was the voting for the NFL awards that we're going to have coming up here at the end of the season. And I'm curious for you now, as you look at the MVP race with all the hay in the barn with the candidates that we've talked about here, do you feel like you've got a clear-cut answer on who the MVP should be this year?
No, I got to tell you the truth. I don't follow it very close at all. The MVP, who's going to do it? We start judging it at week 3. And the Heisman Trophy, we got favorites before it starts. I mean, so all those things. No, I don't. I guess to answer the question, Matt Stafford, been in the league a long time. He's played on some bad teams, took them to the playoffs. He's in a great situation now. I probably would give it to him just for all of his work that he has done as a professional football player.
All right, so leading into Wild Card Weekend, when you're game planning for the playoffs as opposed to the regular season, how different is it, if it is at all, knowing you're now in a situation where when you move on, lose, you're packing your locker the next day?
Yeah, well, you guys know about that. And yeah, I think when it's playoff week or weekend, whatever you want to call it, the attention to detail by the coaches and the players is it's big. You're thinking like that, Mike, like you phrased the question. So it's exciting. You find it practice. It's not like, oh my gosh, here's another day, another practice during a long season. No, you can't wait to practice. Can't wait to watch film. You can't wait to see the plan that the coaches give you. So it's a great time. The bad thing is when you lose, then it can be rough because of the skeptics, the second guessers, the article, whatever it is. It's tough when you lose in playoff football too.
No question. The door slams shut a little bit harder the further and further along you go. I promise I'll let us talk about the playoffs here in a second, but with that in mind, there are some teams that are done here, and I wanted to talk to you as someone that knows the quarterback position so well, studies it so often. We've heard so much focus on the rookies, Jackson Dart and Cam Ward, both going to have new head coaches coming up, but I feel like the back half of the season, a lot of steam around Tyler Shuck and the job that he did in New Orleans. How positioned do you think they are of having their quarterback for the next maybe 5-10 years and their rookie?
I think they feel good about it. I would guess. I watched his games. I'd look at the stats and go, damn, that's another pretty solid game stat-wise, which I don't, just jump into that. But I watched him play. He kind of was everything that I thought he would be. I thought he would be a mid to, probably middle late first round pick. I watched him, he started out, I think, at Texas Tech. He was a running fool down there. Got hurt a couple times, goes to Louisville with Jeff Brom, who runs a pro offense. So he kind of has a little bit of everything. But I think the Saints found their franchise quarterback, at least for the next couple of years.
In quarterbacks that are going to the NFL, 2 years ago, we saw a bunch of first rounders who had a ton of college starts and experience. This year, maybe not so much. Ty Simpson from Alabama just entered the draft. He's had 15 starts. Do you buy into the fact that a college player should have X amount of starts before trying to develop in the NFL?
I didn't know that, Mike, that Ty Simpson says he's going to go to the NFL.
Yeah, 15 starts.
Man, Ty, you could gone in the portal and gone to a team that's about protecting the quarterback better, and you got protected at Alabama, that's for sure. And Alabama probably pushed him out the door a little bit because I know they do have a high-ranking recruit sitting on the bench, and they probably want to get him in there and make everybody believe it was Ty Simpson's fault in a way. And I'm going to tell you this. He held them together. They had nothing going on that football team except the damn quarterback. And he took a beating like not even trying to be funny. He took a beating like I used to take with your damn defensive line. I mean, I probably think about it and go, yep, that's an eagle injury, still bothering me. But I'm not exaggerating. Ty Simpson, if you watch his season, he was really good. And then it came to a point as they got near the late middle part of the season, he was out of gas. I mean, I know as a pro football player, if I took a beating a couple weeks in a row, I'm like, dang, I'm beat up, I'm tired, I don't have the energy. And I think he was in that same position. I'm sad to hear that he's trying to go to the NFL because I don't think his stock is really high. I think he has good talent, needs to put some weight on, if I had to say that, just a little, but he can move. He's got an explosive arm. So we'll see how it goes for him.
Well, he and the rest of these college quarterbacks going to try and get to where some of these quarterbacks are going now with great opportunity. We know this postseason, a big part of it is who's not here. No Patrick Mahomes, no Joe Burrow, no Lamar Jackson here. So how much pressure now do you see on Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, who have kind of always been the bridesmaid but never the bride in the AFC, knowing that some of the usual foes that have stopped them have cleared out?
Yeah, I'll just say this. When I look at the NFL, man, it's just getting tighter and tighter. The difference between 1 and 32 just keeps shrinking, and it's going to get tighter and tougher as time goes on. And Josh Allen, I just say this. Before the season, I didn't think they had a Super Bowl a depth chart or anything like that. I didn't think they would have had a chance to really win the Super Bowl. They're going down to Jacksonville. And, guys, I'll tell you, Jacksonville's rough, it's tough, and they're kind of the opposite of Buffalo. They're a big physical team. Buffalo's like a little more speed-oriented, things like that. And for them to win, Josh Allen will have to be special. He'll have to be borderline great, I think, to beat Jacksonville down there this weekend. So it's
only one game this weekend of division foes, and that's the Bears and the Packers. They're meeting for the third time, not only the third time this year, but the third time in 6 weeks. Oh. So when it's a division foe that you're meeting for a third time, how different can the game plan be, if at all?
Man, you try to spice it up. And, being in the NFL and playing and being in big game, whatever, that when you play, we did that a couple times. We had to play Washington 3 times. I'm like, oh, my gosh. Well, what the hell are we going to come up with? They know everything we're going to do. We know everything they're going to do. And it was tough. The ideas, and you have such a great feel about what you're going up against athletically. And, of course, you got a great feel for the coaches, which you would have had normally. But 3 games in a season, shoot, that's – Caleb Williams is going to drop back and go, man, that worked last game, but it didn't. We got to coach. Don't call that again. I mean – and these coaches know that. But when you have these systems, how far can you go and create a new plays? Pretty tough to do. So I would expect that game to be – I expect it to be low scoring.
Certainly, and that could be a theme of the postseason with all the great defenses here. As you look out at the playoff field right now, who do you think is maybe the most dangerous team, one of the lower-seeded groups that you think has a real chance to make a run this year?
Well, I looked at all those games, and I just did one thing that keeps jumping out at me, San Francisco going to Philadelphia, and I'm going, damn, just guys, look at their roster. The Philadelphia Eagles roster, it's ridiculous. And it would almost be sinful for them to lose and not go back to the Super Bowl. But a team that jumps out at me that's I don't even know. It's maybe that everybody kind of picks the Houston Texans. I have a hard time there. The Chargers, I think it's a good matchup for them going down going up to New England, however you want to say it, even though I think New England would win the game if I had to pick it. So I don't know. You tell me. You got a low-ranking team that nobody thinks can win it to get through it. I guess Houston could be that team because they're explosive on defense and they got experience on the offensive side too.
Yeah, I like Houston's defense a lot as far as a lower-ranked team. And a top-ranked team, Seattle, same thing. I guess maybe the former defensive players coming out in me and looking at the defenses. One quick one on a job that just became available. The Baltimore Ravens just jumped to the top of the list as the best job available with the roster that you have. Do you think that's a team that should go for an experienced head coach or possibly a first-time head coach?
Well, that's a good question. I think the experienced head coach would be the one you would want. I mean, they got a lot of players. Lamar is number one. He's been there all these years, or I forgot how many years. But you need experience to deal with a group of players that have had good success, not great success, but they're looking for somebody to go there and give them a little something different to get over the top and maybe get to a Super Bowl or another championship game, something like that. But as I watched the season for them, I saw John Harbaugh on the sidelines, and he looked, I never saw him get upset or really talk or whatever. And I felt that this was coming towards him. And the fact that Lamar Jackson wouldn't even say anything positive about him after they lost the game or whatever, I said, wow, this looks like the way it's going to go. They're going to have to let him go and go look for somebody else. But I think, Mike, it would be somebody with experience who can handle a football team like they are.
We certainly appreciate all of your experience, Phil. Again, everyone check out Sims Complete Sundays here on FanDuel Sports Net. We're going to get you ready for all the great NFL action as always. Phil, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on. Have a good day.
Thanks, Phil. Thanks.
You too. You know what else we appreciate around here? A good active rivalry, and it's time we do just that. Let's cool off in the NHL with this active rivalry powered by the Active Cash Card. It's the Sharks at the Kings as we get set to go for this matchup, a Pacific Division meeting tonight, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. And, Dad, you'll appreciate this. I always know you love talking fights coming out of hockey. We had a big one with the Sharks the other night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. 38-year-old Ryan Reeves got knocked out by Matthew Olivier in this matchup here. Squared up here last night. Two tough guys, as we mentioned before. Ryan Reeves, 38 years old, not afraid to square up, but gets dropped. And he even said it after. He said, I've been at this for a long time. I think that's the first time that I've been put down in a fight like that. So he was impressed by the output he got on the other side. What do you think of the haymakers here?
Wow. Let me tell you, it was always wondered how you got a lot of power generated because you had each other's jersey, but it sure looked like there was some power in that punch, man. I tell you, the tough guy hockey back in the day, and it's certainly some today, is absolutely amazing.
It's incredible. I appreciate how cordial they are after. Olivier got asked about it after. He said, obviously, I asked him. He obliged. He's been doing this for so long. It's impressive how he's had the career he's had doing this year after year. It was an open fight and anyone can get caught. That's respect for your elders in a sport that allows you to legally go punch each other in the face. That really is. But the rivalry with San Jose and the Kings, 207 total meetings starting in 91. They had 7 ties before the 04-05 lockout. And then after that, they had a shootout after the tie. But an interesting year there, the 93-94 season. Actually, the Kings, the Sharks, and the Ducks, all 3 California teams were fighting for the final 8th spot for the playoffs. That's also the year that Wayne Gretzky, who was with the Kings, passed Gordie Howe for the most goals in NHL history. And then obviously Wayne Gretzky just got patched by Ovechkin. So yeah, pretty wild stuff. Pretty wild stuff. Looking forward to this one. Certainly, speaking of young stars here, Mac Celebrini, one of the guys getting some MVP buzz right now, can be seen in this matchup for the Sharks. So going to be a fun time there. Even more fun, though, coming up next. Phil Simms mentioned, in order to get it done, is Josh Allen going to have to put on the cape once again? We'll break down Bills at Jags next on Golic and Golic. You're on Golic and Golic, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. And with that in mind, Wild Card Weekend is coming up here. We have 6 great games across the league, and we want to give you a little specific look at each one of them here. So over the next couple of days, we're going to take a look at 2 games a day. Coming up later to end the show, we'll have 49ers and Eagles, a rematch of a great couple of postseason bouts in the NFC. But first, we got to head down to Duval County. Shout out to Emerson Latzia. America's team, the Jacksonville Jaguars, get set to host the Buffalo Bills in a matchup that has so much interesting to it, even getting past 2 of the better quarterbacks you'll see in the NFL, Dad. Josh Allen on one side, Trevor Lawrence on the other. Both guys first-round draft picks, built like space aliens, and going to try and go put it on wax for their team this weekend. But you tell me, Josh Allen seems to be the focus for so many people, despite how great Jacksonville has played, especially the back half of this season. Do you still feel like this game is going to wind up being a referendum on Josh Allen's career, given the fact that he's yet to get over the hump and now doesn't have Patrick Mahomes in his way this year?
Yeah, I mean, in every game that they needed, you wait for Josh Allen to put the cape on, right, and do something spectacular. I don't know if there's a guy, maybe Mahomes, that puts on the cape better than Josh Allen does. So, yeah, you are looking for that. This is a third meeting between these two teams in the postseason. Jacksonville won both wild card in 2017 and 1996. But outside of the quarterbacks, this is a matchup that I love because I was a run stopper, not a pass rusher. What I would be frothing at the mouth to play in this game. Buffalo Bills, number one rush offense in the league. Jacksonville Jaguars, number one rush defense in the league. Something's got to give. 157, I think, for Buffalo and 86 given up for Jacksonville. James Cook, I think, one of the more underrated backs. But Josh Allen runs well. He's got, I think, the second or third most scramble yards out of a quarterback. When he gets outside, 426 rush yards scrambling, third most in the NFL. Also, when Josh Allen gets out of the pocket, 9 touchdowns and 1 interception when he scrambles and doesn't run, but throws the ball. So again, he's dangerous outside the pocket. Throw it. He's dangerous outside the pocket, running the ball. But both teams are going to try and establish their dominance on the offensive line for Buffalo and the defensive front seven for Jacksonville.
We do have, lest people not forget, a matchup of Josh's Allen in this game. Josh Hines Allen, the star pass rusher for the Jags, who is the same pick a year apart in the first round of the draft, one for the Jags and one for the Bills. He's going to be the one trying to corral Josh Allen in this game, and that's the name of it, right? With the rushing credit, this is insane in terms of how prolific Josh Allen and James Cook have been in this backfield. The Bills are just one of 4 teams all time to have 2 players rush for 12 or more touchdowns in a season. It's James Cook and Josh Allen, as we mentioned. Did you know, Dad, of the 4 teams to have 2 players rush for 12 or more touchdowns in a season, 3 of them have come in the last 2 seasons. The 2024 Bills, the 2024 Eagles, and the 2024 Lions as well, I should say. So all 4, I should say, have come in the last couple of seasons, which is just an insane referendum on them. But I do wonder, we focus so much on this matchup where it's going to be great on great, and south of the Chicago Bears, no defense has done a better job of turning opposing offenses over the way that Jacksonville has. My worry for this game is on the other side for Buffalo, because they come into this game, the number 1 pass defense in terms of yards per game in the NFL, 28th in rush defense in that same metric, though. And we know this time of year, the ability to stop the run becomes paramount. So for Jacksonville on the other side, how confident are you that Trevor Lawrence and that offense can take advantage of that mismatch on defense?
Well, they have to, right? Because not only do you obviously run the ball well against the Buffalo team, but you control the ball. You control the time of possession. You keep Josh Allen off the field. It's a domino effect. They have to try and be successful running the game. This is the biggest flaw of the Buffalo team, offensively, defensively, special teams, is their run defense. So absolutely you expect Jacksonville to run. And if Jacksonville is able to run, how much will that help Trevor Lawrence in the passing game? And how about Trevor Lawrence's passing game? In the last 8 games, he's passed for 19 touchdowns and run for 5 touchdowns. Only Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton are players with at least 19 touchdown passes and 5 rushing touchdowns in an 8-game span. So, again, Liam Cohen is getting the best out of Trevor Lawrence. We had questions about Trevor Lawrence coming into this year. Did he hit his ceiling? Is what you see what you get? But Liam Cohen has gotten more out of him. He's producing more. And you are going up against a defense in Buffalo that definitely has a hole in it in that rush defense.
Liam Cohen, just the 7th first-time head coach in NFL history to win 13 or more games in his first season. So you're right. The hype was real. He has absolutely changed the trajectory of Trevor Lawrence, who had to start off his career dealing with the Urban Meyer era in Jacksonville. And the fact that he's been able to overcome that now and get to this point, the fact that the Jags down the stretch probably weren't getting enough credit for how dominant they were. I think that game against the Denver Broncos maybe woke people up a little bit to what this team is capable of on both sides of the ball. And I think now that you look at this group on what the offense has developed into, right? What Jacoby Myers coming over there meant. Parker Washington's been sensational for them. Brenton Strange at tight end might be one of the keys to the whole operation. Yeah. All the different ways that they use him. And so I think as much billing as we're giving that matchup on the other side of the ball, this is the one I'm much more concerned about because, Dad, if you're wondering, well, Mike, how bad is the Buffalo Bills run defense? I'm not really sure. The Buffalo Bills run defense has allowed a league worst 3.93 yards after contact per rush. The Jacksonville defense, as a counter, has only allowed 3.9 yards per carry on all rushes this season. So Buffalo is giving up more yards after contact per rush than the Jacksonville defense is giving up overall per rush this season.
Yeah. It's been bad again, and like I said, it's a domino effect of getting the ball controlled on you. So that's obviously. The matchup to watch is the run defense against the run offense of Jacksonville. Jacksonville only averages about 115 yards on the ground. It's not like they're world beaters on the ground. So let's see if they can add to it a little bit more. And as far as Buffalo pass rush, and they have 36 sacks on the year, so we'll see what kind of pressure that they can put on Trevor Lawrence, who again, like Josh Allen, maybe not as well as Josh Allen, but can be dangerous with his legs.
No, I think we've seen that, especially down in the red zone. This has been a player that's feeling as confident with that element of his game in conjunction with the passing numbers that have all improved as any point in his career right now. And it's why you combine all that. They're the much more balanced and complete team overall. Buffalo can throw hammers downhill on defense, but if all of a sudden the other cracks prove to be too much, I think life could get pretty hard for the Bills this weekend in a way that is not all Josh Allen's fault. Let's just get out ahead of that right now. If we're going to talk about running the football, though, coming up next, we'll talk to Kaytron Allen, one of the best running backs in Penn State history, about his jump from college to the pros, coming up next. Hour number 2 here on Golic and Golic, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr. To my knowledge, neither of us have entered the transfer portal so far in this show. Dad, I'm sure you're entertaining some robust outside offers, so I can understand whatever decision you got to make, we will support here at Golic and Golic.
Well, let's keep it on the down low for now. I won't make it public because I haven't signed anything to renege on the signature, to go against that and it be sued.
Yes, exactly. Yes, promptly. Our lawyers are standing by, ready to take you down and collect on billable hours as we speak. Speaking of college players who can tell us all about what life has been like in this new world, Kaytron Allen, the former Penn State running back, getting ready to make his jump to the NFL, going to join us here hopefully in about 10 minutes and talk about the experience of that, certainly a tumultuous Penn State season that now has Matt Campbell taking over as the head coach of the Nittany Lions. In the meantime, we'll get you caught up here in our 3-point stance. 3 big stories going on around the world of sports, and it starts in Major League Baseball. The Chicago Cubs have officially acquired right-hander Edward Cabrera in a trade with the Miami Marlins that's going to send their top outfield prospect Owen Cassey and 2 other hitting prospects to the Marlins. Sources told ESPN the deal is done and official. Cabrera coming off a best season of his career in 2025, 8-7 with a 3.53 ERA and career highs of 150 strikeouts over 137 2/3 innings. Mark Cuban, meanwhile, the rich keep getting richer, and that means IU. The Mavericks minority owner and 1981 Indiana grad told Front Office Sports he's made another donation to the school's athletic department after the Hoosiers' undefeated run through the college football playoff. Clarified that the AD, Scott Dolson, can do what he wants with the money and didn't say precisely how much he gave, but said, quote, let's just say they're happier this year than last year. And last but not least, Alabama quarterback Ty Simpson has announced he'll enter the 2026 NFL draft. Simpson started just 1 season for the Tide, let Kalen DeBoer and offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb know of his decision today. Simpson's father and UT Martin football coach Jason Simpson said his son received first-round grades from every NFL GM that they talked to. And, Dad, that's kind of emblematic of 2 things, right? The NFL, we know, has a quarterback problem where there's never enough good ones to go around for everyone. And this was really a draft class that they banked on there being this kind of supply for. And while that's dissipated quickly, it's given way to a pretty thin class where we know Fernando Mendoza is probably going to come out and be the number 1 overall pick. Dante Moore has been widely talked about as someone who could maybe challenge that. And then we really haven't seen many of the names that could and should have done that. So do you agree with Ty Simpson trying to go and take advantage of maybe a thin quarterback class and boost his stock?
Well, listen, I can see both sides of the fence here, right? If you're going to be a first rounder, but where in the first round? A projection was for him later in the first round, which we know is different money than earlier in the first round, but we know we're getting paid a lot in college. So what does that matter anymore? There have been reports of evaluators saying he's a day 2 pick. But as you just mentioned, his father said that every GM they talk to has a first round grade on him. And we know quarterbacks are overvalued, so maybe he gets picked higher than some people think. But as we were talking about with Phil Simms, and as I mentioned, he'll have 15 starts under his belt. And while obviously young quarterbacks develop in the NFL doesn't want developmental quarterbacks in the NFL. And that's my fear, that you go in and you're a first rounder, that's cool. But if you're a developmental guy and not someone to be developed, a really developmental guy who's going to take a while, the patience is less in the NFL now than it ever was. So I listen, and who am I? I mean, I was a 10th rounder. If you can go in the first round, go. But money's really not the issue anymore, right? Because about leaving school and starting your first contract, because you can make more money in college in your first year in the NFL. So I look at the bigger picture of going in more ready. And if you can hold off and then maybe next year be a top 5 pick, and have more starts under your belt, I would lean that way. But I'm an outsider looking in.
Yeah, it's tough because, it's easy to say for us sitting here with someone else,
yes.
but
yes.
everything's recency and full of recency bias, right? We talked about the quarterback class of 2024 and how Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. and all these guys had so many starts under their belt. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, has all that experience, and hey, it looks good translating to the NFL, ignoring the fact that they wound up being coached by Sean Payton and Kyle Shanahan, who are pretty damn good at this whole thing.
Yeah.
But then on the other side, now this last year, look at the quarterbacks that we talked about as potential top overall picks. Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller, a couple of whom, if Drew Aller had left last year, probably a first-round draft pick at quarterback,
right.
And now staring at a very different reality. And so part of me understands wanting to get while the getting's good. And with Ty Simpson, it's going to be an interesting eval because you're right. The NFL has made very apparent we're not here for developmental quarterbacks. See Trey Lance, see Anthony Richardson, guys caked in ability who needed some time and seasoning that combined with injury, the league just wasn't willing to give them. I don't think Ty Simpson necessarily falls into that paradigm, but he's got some issues under pressure. He was asked to do a lot in that offense that is an offense with NFL stuff to it. Ryan Grubb had just spent the year in Seattle. So there's pros and cons on both sides. And like you said, maybe late first round is actually better, given that you're less likely to have to step into a terrible situation and be the guy right away.
That's true. There is something to that. There's pride of wanting to be drafted high, but then there's, you can go to a better team if you're later in the first round. Now, listen, he excelled at play action, right? That was a big thing for him. That's kind of like why we saw a drop-off midway to later in the season, because they had no running game. They had no running threat, which means there was no threat of play action. So when he had to handle the passing by himself, at times he was good. Make no mistake about it. But he is better at the play action. And to your point, if you go to a bad team, a lot of times that's not a very good running team. A lot rests on your shoulders.
No question. It was tough, and he found that out the hard way this year, and that's what you're walking into at the next level. That's why, listen, we've always seen the last couple of years, the quarterbacks that have been mocked late in the first round to a team like the Rams, we all go, man, what manna from heaven that would be to wind up with competent organizations, with veterans that you can learn from, and a coach that you can trust. Maybe that is the sweet spot in all this, but the other part of that is it takes two to tango. And what we know is we've got desperate NFL teams. The Browns have 2 first-round picks this year and seem to want to really use them because their quarterback situation's murky. We've talked about this with a number of other teams that are going to be at or near the top picks in this draft. And you just wonder, you see right there, the Cardinals, unsure about their future. The Jets at 2, unsure about their future at that position. So there's a few quarterback-needy teams up top, and you wonder, does desperation all of a sudden pull these guys up to a place where maybe their tape and ability aren't quite yet?
Yeah, there is desperation, but there has to be in the back of everybody's head, what if you miss? What if you draft high and miss? And in 2 years, you're going through it all again. I mean, that's what management and ownership are weighing because we all know the quarterback position is overvalued and they get reached for. But again, I wonder how much they'll get reached for with lesser starts. You wonder if management and ownership can now look at that and say, I don't know, maybe we ought to hold off on that and go for a trade of a veteran or a free agent or something like that. I just kind of see a trend more where pro teams are kind of backing off guys who just don't have a lot of starts in college.
Yeah, and I think that's why Ty becomes the interesting one, because I think Dante Moore, if he comes out, I think I was looking at it, has started 19 games going into what will be his 20th start this coming weekend between two schools. Tons of ability there. Fernando Mendoza, the outlier, Heisman Trophy winner, 33 starts between Cal and Indiana. Right. Like he's ready to make the jump by most counts and seems to be the obvious answer. Everything else, boy, that's what they pay these GMs all sorts of money for. Lord knows I won't want to be strapped with one of these decisions. You know what I would like to do? I would like to buy blue chip stock in a running back from a premier institution who's put it on wax for a while. Kaytron Allen, former Penn State All-American and the school's all-time leading rusher, kind enough to join us now as he gets set to make his trip to the next level of the sport and try his hand at the NFL. Kaytron, good to see you, man. How you doing?
What's good? What's going on with y'all?
Doing well.
Not too much, man. We're doing well. We're excited to have you here, and congratulations. I know, leaving behind a prolific career the way that you did in college has to be a difficult decision. What went into your decision to finally make this jump and chase the dream of the NFL?
I just felt like it was the perfect time to do that. Had a great 4 years at Penn State. Glad I got the opportunity to play there and pursue my dreams. I just felt like now is the time to go chase my dreams that I've been chasing for a little kid since I was a little kid.
Now, you certainly have had enough experience, 769 carries, over 4,100 yards, 39 touchdowns. So where and how are you preparing for the next level and all the evaluations that are going to happen?
Just trying to do little things right as of right now, taking one day at a time, trying to get right for this offseason, get prepared for the combine, stuff like that, and just trying to get my mind right, focus on what I need to do best right now, and I feel like that's the little things for my body and stuff
surely, hugely important as you get set for that task, and I know every step of the journey provides something different. We mentioned you leave Penn State as the all-time leading rusher, but obviously this last season for you guys on the field, it didn't go the way that you hoped for. I'm curious, during the middle of an up-and-down season, what did you take away from this last year that you think is going to help you as a pro going forward?
Unfortunately, we didn't have the season that we wanted to, but I learned a lot trying to get through the storm for my teams, stuff like that. We built it as like the season got on, we leaned on each other, got closer, and got back to having fun again to normal playing football. As Coach Terry did a great job, and we just rallied together and just stayed as one and just blocked out the outside noise.
You talked about doing what you have to do to get ready for all the evaluations coming up. I mentioned your rushing stats. You caught the most passes this year that you did in your career. You caught a little bit less. You had 18 receptions. And we know how big of being a two-way player is in the NFL. How much have you been working on catching the ball out of the backfield?
I've been working on it a lot. I've been trying to do that way more because I feel like I can do that. I can do it a lot. I'm an every down back and things like that. I just need an opportunity to do that and showcase it. And I feel like I can do it. And I don't think it's nothing to it. I just got to keep working on it, working on everything in my game. I feel like I can get better at everything.
For you, it's always interesting in this modern version of the sport. We see so many guys, if they're not the main starter, head to a different school, try and go be the main guy at their position. You were one of the backfield tandems in college football that had two great backs with you and Nicholas Singleton. So why was it the right decision for both of you to stay in that backfield? And were you ever worried about maybe not getting the bulk of the carries and being the main back?
First and foremost, that's my dog, Nick. He's a great running back. We lean on each other a lot. We talk to each other on and off the field, build that relationship with each other. So just helping each other learn from the off season and things like that, and building on each other. And I feel like me and him been playing with each other for 4 years. Through the scrum to the week, everything for real. So I just felt like I had to come back, and it's all about what you do with your opportunities and how you go forward. And I feel like all I need is an opportunity to showcase everything, and whatever I get the chance to get the opportunity, I think I'm doing well with it.
Talked about being there 4 years with your running mate, also there with all 4 years with James Franklin. What were your thoughts on him being let go from Penn State?
Man, of course it was hard for us and for the team because he gave us an opportunity to change our life when we first got there, and it wasn't just all about football with him. It was about family. Everything just came about it, and unfortunately, it was a rough season. And I wish he could have finished the season out with us, but Coach Franklin, he always been there for me, and he gave me an opportunity to change my life. A kid from Norfolk, so that's my guy for real.
You guys finished out the year, as you mentioned, with Coach Terry Smith. Were you in favor of him keeping that job full time? Were you one of the guys that thought he should be the one to lead Penn State?
Nah, I for sure thought he should have been the head coach there. Just the energy he brought and the player to coach Dane, that's my guy. I feel like he should have been the head coach there, but I mean, we don't make the decision, so we can't do nothing about that. But Coach Terry, he is that guy, and he brought us back to who he was and how the season should have been. And he loved football. I love anybody that loves football. So Coach Terry, he brought that energy back to us and the fun.
Let's go back to what brought you first to Penn State and now the NFL. You started out high school in Virginia, but then you transferred to IMG Academy. Now, I went to a high school in Cleveland, Ohio. My son went to high school in Connecticut. You hear so much about IMG. Kind of give us a little bit of the inside look on just how big of a program that is.
IMG is a great program. They get you prepared for the college level and everything. So just being on the schedule wise and doing that and going there, I'm glad I got the opportunity to do that because I feel like I was well prepared going to college. So IMG was great for me, and I felt like I needed it, and I'm glad I made that opportunity to go there and got that chance to go, the opportunity to go there. So it was great. It had me prepared well.
Every step of the way, it seems like you've been ready for the next challenge. As you look ahead to the NFL, you talked about the prep already. Obviously, there's a very prominent Penn State alum that plays running back in the NFL, but are there guys, maybe Saquon included, that you watch that you want to try and model your game for at the next level?
I watch a lot of guys like Saquon. He a big mentor to me. Saquon, Jameer Gill, Josh Jacobs. I watch a lot of guys, Kareem Williams. There's a lot of guys I watch and try to build my game after them because I feel like I'm always trying to learn. So anytime I can get to learn from other players and see what they do and try to modify my game to it and just at the end of the day be myself and just try to add little things to my game that I'm always trying to get better for real.
That kind of mentality, I think, is going to take you a long way. I'm sure Saquon's a great mentor, but you went out and made all former Penn State alums proud what you put on tape for the last 4 years. So best of luck, Kaytron. We appreciate your time, and we're excited to watch your journey to the NFL draft, man.
Appreciate y'all, man. Thank y'all for having me.
Thanks.
Absolutely. All right, coming up next, how smart are we here at Golic and Golic? We'll go back and revisit our preseason prediction and find out which one of us is the winner and grand champion next on Golic and Golic. Welcome back to Golic and Golic. Former 14-year NFL vet Chase Daniel going to join us in about 10-15 minutes here, break down some of the quarterbacks coming up to the NFL level and some of the issues surrounding the transfer portal in college football. But before we go forward, we have to look backward. At the beginning of the season, our show staff asked us to make some bold predictions about each of these teams and some of the divisions around the NFL, some of the big hot-button stuff. I think, quite honestly, so that they could bring them back up to laugh at us when we inevitably got a bunch of them wrong in droves. And so someone who loves to shame us publicly here on national television kind of to join us now, our intrepid researcher, Daniel Greco, most known for Greco-Roman trivia. No trivia here today, just revisiting some of the predictions from before the season. So, Greco, I trust that this is going to make me feel equally as stupid.
Well, thanks for having me back, guys. I wear a USC polo one time and haven't been on the show in 3 months. So I think I learned my lesson.
Maybe learn. That's exactly
You wore
right.
the, you wore the
learned.
right colors today. We appreciate it.
Blue, you're right, Navy. All right. So with the season over, we can look back at your bold predictions. There's actually 2 still currently active. Both are done by Junior. First is the AFC West. The Chargers will advance past the wild card round. And the second one is the NFC North. The Packers will play the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. So let's play our favorite game. Either, neither, or both on Junior's bold predictions.
Ooh. All right. If I had to pick one, I would absolutely say either, and I would say the Chargers get past the wild card round, because at this point, Dad, I think there is a much better chance that they take down the Patriots, who have subsisted on a diet of sub 500 teams, than I think it is we get an NFC championship without anyone from the NFC West involved in it, which would currently be the case with the Eagles and Packers.
Yeah, I would agree. I like the NFC West to at least have the one representative come out. So I would go with the Chargers as well. Listen, while New England is a very fundamentally sound, good two-way team, excellent coach, obviously in Vrabel, excellent quarterback, it would not be a shock to me if the Chargers were to go to Foxborough and get that win.
Yeah, it seems like the far more likely outcome there. So, all right, that being said, at least got those teams to the dance in
Not
the
bad.
one position here, got the Chargers in there. Feel pretty good about that. So what do we got next here, Greco?
All right. You both had a prediction for a player to lead the NFL in a statistic. Senior, you said Tyler Warren would lead all tight ends in receiving yards. And Junior, you said Bijan Robinson would lead the NFL in rushing. Whose prediction was closer?
Ooh, I know Bijan
yeah.
was one of the guys that broke 2,000 scrimmage yards there. So I'll say Bijan was closer, because I think that Trey McBride ended up far outpacing everyone in the tight ends.
Yeah, he did, but it's where they came and what place they came in. But I don't think Tyler Warren didn't have as much as I thought. So I actually think Bijan Robinson is going to be the right answer in this.
Bijan Robinson is the right answer. He was 4th. Tyler Warren, though, was 5th. So closer than you think.
Wow. All right.
And mine was a rookie.
There you go.
Mine was a rookie. I should get extra credit for that.
Why should you get extra credit for that? That has nothing to do with this.
Because he's a rookie. He's a newbie, and he was 5th. Bijan Robinson's been around the league forever, and he was 4th. Maybe not forever, but, you know.
Yeah, I can say I don't really think that counts in the same way, but if you want extra credit, I will give you a gold. I'm giving you a gold star right now on the screen there that I probably just smudged with my finger. Greco, what else we got?
And on to the NFC West. You both had some high hopes for the Cardinals. Senior, you predicted Marvin Harrison Jr. would have 1,000 receiving yards and make the Pro Bowl. Junior, you said the Cardinals would win the division. Why did you both have so much high hopes for the Cardinals this season?
Oh, your pick was way worse than my pick. Wow.
I mean, we spent the first quarter of the season wondering what was wrong if Marvin Harrison Jr. had the yips. So let's not act like you were totally in the clear on this. But that being said, I might have gotten a little over my skis. I think the fellows at FTN had some kind things to say about the Cardinals in their book before the season, and I might have gotten a little bit too high on that supply.
Yeah, I think we overshot a little bit with the Cardinals. We'll learn our lesson for next year.
Yeah, no, surely we won't say anything that dumb again next year. Definitely, 100% not. Greco, how do we wrap up here?
All right, so now on to the results. You both made 8 predictions, and you both got exactly 1 right. Senior, you predicted the Broncos would win the AFC West. And Junior, you predicted that Drake May would have more than 4,000 passing yards. So it's a tie. And we're all winners because it's a family show.
No.
Look at that.
Mike and I are losers. I mean,
we
one
are.
right? You know what? All you guys are the losers. You're not. When you make predictions, you're only supposed to bring it back up if we got them right, not if we got them wrong.
Wow, you know what? First off, turning around, my father, the ultimate purveyor of pull the thumb, don't point the finger in assigning blame for things. Just let the chopper sing on our entire staff for us being bad at our jobs here. Shame on you for that, Dad. Shame on you, Greco, for coming back here with this kind of energy. Although I'm glad you at least wore the right colors. We will have you back for trivia much sooner than this last appearance. We appreciate it, buddy.
Awful.
Sounds good, guys. Appreciate it.
Whatever.
You know what? We're not. You know what? There's supposed to be bold predictions. If you bat 1,000 on your bold predictions, it means you're not being bold and brash enough. And we are many things, bold and brash. Correctly, maybe not one of them. You know,
bold just means wrong.
Welcome back to Golic. Hey, before we get to a football binge weekend for the ages, Thursday and Friday night college football playoffs, semifinal matchups, and then a full wild card weekend slate in the NFL. To go along with plenty of news that we've had on the coaching front, college players declaring for the NFL. So to help us wrap our arms around all of that, former NFL quarterback turned broadcaster Chase Daniel kind enough to join us now. Catch him doing a great job calling games, covering college and the NFL over at ESPN. Chase, good to talk to you, man. How are you feeling on the final eve before we get all this good football action?
Dude, this is the best week of football. You got wild card weekend, you got college football semifinals, you got transfer portal drama and madness, you got all sorts of stuff. You got draft guys coming out, Ty Simpson's coming out, who's going back to school, how much are guys getting paid? I mean, it is unbelievable, and it is jam-packed, and thanks for having me on.
Well, one thing related to you, we also have a bunch of coaching changes coming up. Did you ever think about going into coaching?
It was definitely thought of for sure. Look, when I retired a couple of years ago, I can't believe it's been 3 full years. There was always something in me that wanted to continue with football. Coaching was obviously on top of mind. And then, I say this joking, but I think this would be true, is my wife would divorce me if I went into coaching. You guys know how much it takes. And as a quarterback, when I was in LA the last 2 years, I saw my kids during season 10 hours a week. And so I love my family too much. I think that would be great. I actually got offered some quarterback coaching jobs when I was done playing. And I was like, there's just no way I can do it. It was time. So I still get the same, rush, I guess you would say, as broadcasting. I started calling games this year. We're still doing studio. We have the YouTube. I mean, I'm still so much involved, but I'm here in sunny San Diego with my kids. I'm about to go pick them up. I'm about to go coach them up. We have football practice today. So this is a good life.
No question about it. And you've done all of the hard work to get to this point now, to get to enjoy that fruits of your labor. I want to start, though, back in college and kind of work to the pros, because you mentioned we got a changing landscape with a lot of what's going on right now. College football has kind of got their free agent frenzy they were hoping for, maybe a little more than they're hoping for. The Damon Williams situation, Washington quarterback reportedly signs a deal to return there, now announces that he wants to enter the portal. Rumors about LSU. What's the solve for all this, where we're at with college football right now in your mind?
I have no idea. And this Damon Williams story is one of the crazier stories, because it's hey, you're going back to Washington. I think he's one of the better dual threat guys, can run it, can throw it. And Washington sort of got a steal. It was sort of underneath the radar. Then Pete Thamel last night reports, hey, he's going in the portal. I'm like, he just signed paperwork with Washington. And oh, by the way, as this news breaks, Sam Levitt, who is one of the top transfer portal guys who used to play for Arizona State, he's in the portal. He's at a freaking LSU basketball game with Lane Kiffin in Whit Week. So you got to imagine he's got a phone. He can understand what's going on. And so it's just sort of the wild, wild west. I put a tweet out. I think college football is broken in that aspect. I actually really enjoy and like that these guys are getting paid. And everyone's like, well, look at what the coaches can do. They can just leave. They can do that. I understand that. These guys are 18, 19, 20 years old. And so for me, I think the transfer portal is good. I think that NIL is great. I really do. I just think there has to be some type of collective bargaining agreement between these guys. Now, you're going to have to start a union. You're going to have to do all this stuff. I don't know. I mean, the easiest way to do it is you're allowed one free transfer. And then the second transfer, you have to sit out a year, but don't lose a year of eligibility. And that way it can sort of protect these teams. Because look, I've called college football for ESPN for the first time this year. I have been just through and through an NFL guy. I like the NFL game. I'm well versed in it. I played 14 years, feel really comfortable talking about it. It took me a little bit to get used to talking about college ball. The actual football in college ball is so down. And it just doesn't look like I've called a Georgia game this year. I called a Texas game this year. I've called a Texas A&M game this year. The product on the field, it suffers. And you talk to these coaches, they have 6 months to build a team because they have all these guys getting here in January. Some of the guys getting here in July. And you have to like play these early games as sort of like a preseason of sorts and hope your team peaks right now, like when they're playing the semifinals. So it's just, I have no idea. Honestly, it's just such the wild, wild west.
It seems the agreement with Damon Williams signed with Washington included a provision prohibiting him from entering the transfer portal. So Washington's refusing to let him go in the portal. I mean, at the end of the day, we need to have basically NFL rules in college, don't we?
I think so. And that's the thing is like, when you sign these deals, and the Big Ten's going to get involved with this because there was a transfer that went from Wisconsin to Miami maybe last year that they were still trying to fight it. Look, ultimately, I don't know if this is a net negative or a net positive for Damon Williams if they're not going to let you transfer, how embarrassing is going to be your leader of the team is there like, hey, I want out. Are they going to hold him hostage? I mean, it's just not going to end well for anyone. So, but also, like, I understand from Washington's side because you have all of these factors at play, and some of these guys are demanding $6 million. Damon made $4 million. He's going to make $6 million, I guess. That's being reported at LSU. Like $6 million. So it's crazy to me, man.
It's pretty wild what's going on with all these guys, and it makes the NFL decision interesting, given the fact that you can return for those dollar figures, get some development at this level, but we still see guys making the decision to go with comparatively fewer starts under their belt. Ty Simpson, the latest to throw his hat into the ring for an NFL draft cycle that we know is going to include Fernando Mendoza. We assume Dante Moore. Like, how do you stack up this quarterback class with what we know about it right now?
Look, I was not surprised at all that Ty Simpson was coming out. If you look at next year's class, it's a much stronger class on paper than this year. This year is really thin. Fernando Mendoza is the only true fire first-round quarterback right now that has been. I actually got to call the Orange Bowl on radio, so I got to see Dante Moore in person. I really, really like Dante Moore. I think he should absolutely come out. He's got a little bit more flick in his wrist and arm strength and arm talent than I would say Fernando Mendoza. And the ball jumps off his hand. I think he's got a higher ceiling than Fernando. But when you look at Fernando, I studied him. I just broke down a quarterback breakdown on my YouTube channel about him in the Rose Bowl. You look at the last two games against Ohio State, and you look at them against Alabama. Both great defenses, both two of the better defenses, I would say, in the country. And he just absolutely demolished. Like, it's the right decision at the right time. He never gets confused. He's extremely smart. He's got a good enough arm. He's got good enough athletic ability. He's like, I know Pat McAfee called him a generational prospect. I wouldn't go that far, but like, I know the OC and quarterback coach for Indiana, and it's nothing but rave reviews. He's already studying, and they're already running an NFL style offense. He's one of those guys that you can just plug and play.
So a couple of quarterbacks looking to be in the NFL next weekend or next year. This weekend we have the wild card, 6 games. Which game in the wild card weekend intrigues you the most?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I think that the Chicago Bears Green Bay Packers game on Amazon, that's going to be one to watch, because you look at how Caleb Williams has played, you look at Ben Johnson, how well he's coached, especially in his first year. But then you look at their last 2 games and they just haven't really been able to finish. And that's sort of the problem with the Bears this year, is they don't really play very well at the beginning. They don't have an amazing defense. They get a lot of takeaways. They give up points, but they get a lot of takeaways. So there's more possessions to go around offensively for Chicago. But I would love to see Caleb Williams play like he's playing in the fourth quarter, in the second and third quarter. He usually starts the game really well, and then middle of the pack is second and third quarter sort of goes to sleep, and then fourth quarter it's like Houdini out there. And then on the other side of the football, like, the Green Bay Packers are the most inconsistent, consistent team I've ever. It's like I say this, it's almost like a mystery. You don't know what team you're going to get. I think they could like lose and get blown out by Chicago, and I also think at some point they could go on a run for Super Bowl. I mean, it's wide open this year. There's no Patrick Mahomes, so obviously you'd see. It's just an interesting game to me, and it's really interesting that the NFL gave it to a streamer too, because that's going to get big numbers.
Yeah, no question. Two teams that seem like real boomer bust potential on both sides, division rivals making their way there, and certainly a sign of the times winding up on a streaming platform. Speaking of sign of the times, you can catch Chase Daniel pretty much everywhere. Check out his YouTube channel at Chase Daniel Official for plenty of great breakdowns there. Doing a great job, ESPN, both college and pro, calling some games this year. Chase, appreciate it. Enjoy the great weekend of ball, and I'm sure we'll do this again soon, man. Thanks.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Awesome stuff from Chase. Appreciate his time heading into one of the better weekends in sport. I feel like Wild Card Weekend always gets that billing, but now you throw on top of it the fact that we've got the CFP Thursday, Friday night as a lead into that. Pretty strong to quite strong.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I would look eventually for the college football playoff to change. I do think eventually they'll change the calendar. And the games will be a little earlier, where this might be the semifinal weekend. I don't think the finals weekend, but maybe the semifinals weekend if they back it up a week.
Yeah, not having to battle the NFL directly too often. Good for business. This just in. Speaking of good for business, we love rivalries. We love active rivalries powered by the Active Cash Card. And we got one coming up tonight in the NBA. Bulls-Pistons, obviously remnants of the early 90s matchups between the Bulls, the Michael Jordan-led Chicago Bulls, and the bad boy Pistons teams here. A little bit of a different story now, Dad. The Bulls, one of the teams a lot of people are circling like buzzards around the trade deadline to see who they might move, while the Pistons look like they could have a claim to being one of the best teams in basketball.
But listen, this rivalry is all about the bad boys and Michael Jordan, right? I mean, actually, the first time they met in the playoffs was 74. Before any of this, the Bulls won it in 7 games. But then the late 80s, Detroit kind of had the Bulls' number in the playoffs. They just had Jordan and would live by the Jordan rules of making sure they took care of him and try and make the team beat him. And then the 90-91 season, the Bulls finally broke through, beat him in the playoffs, and I don't think they met in the playoffs since then. But there was the animosity between Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan. Isaiah Thomas, while he played in Detroit, was a Chicago kid and kind of taking the shine off of his upbringing because MJ was the man in Chicago. Yeah, the 1985 All-Star freeze-out where Isaiah Thomas got some other vets to freeze out Michael Jordan at the All-Star game. Then you have the 92 Olympic Dream Team, of which Isaiah Thomas wasn't a part of because supposedly Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen did not want him on the team. So certainly stretched beyond just the Detroit Pistons and the Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, 2 of the better 30 for 30s ESPN ever did. So a lot of that chronicled so much meme-worthy content from all of those interactions between Michael Jordan, Isaiah, and everything that went down with those two. And, man, some things change, some things stay the same here. The Pistons' dedication to playing a suffocating level of defense going to be tough for this current iteration. I don't think the Giddey rules are in effect right now, even though it looks like on paper, like, hey, Kobe White could be an asset around the trade deadline, but Josh Giddey seems like he's the future for Chicago. That looked good to start the season and obviously has aged a little bit like milk thus far. So, but take every chance you can to watch the Detroit Pistons in 2026. They are a spectacularly fun team, and I have a feeling that suffocating effort going to be a little bit too much for the Bulls to overcome tonight. So plenty more to check out there. Plenty more to check up here. You want to talk about suffocating? That's usually a good way to describe the Philadelphia Eagles defense. Do they have enough for Brock Purdy and the Niners? Next on Golic and Golic. As we wrap up here on Golic and Golic, Mike Golic Jr., Mike Golic Sr., Wild Card Weekend almost upon us. We've got 6 great games, so we've got 3 days. That means 2 matchups a day we'll take a deeper look at getting set up. We had the Jags and the Bills earlier in the show. I think now you'll be able to see that on YouTube if I saw yesterday's show up there correctly. So check out the FanDuel Sports Network YouTube channel if you want to check out any of that from earlier in the show. But we've got Eagles and 49ers, a matchup that we last saw in the 2022 NFC Championship game. The 49ers lost 31-7 to the Eagles as Brock Purdy knocked out of that game with the UCL injury early that kind of changed everything. But as we look at this one now, a real interesting matchup of styles and fights. We had strength on strength before with the Buffalo Bills rushing offense, the Jags rushing defense. This one a little more one-sided, Dad. The Philadelphia Eagles defense with Vic Fangio, we know one of the best in the league. The 49ers offense, led by Kyle Shanahan and a resurgent Brock Purdy back from injury, looks like the strength on strength. what the Eagles offense can do against the 49ers defense, both of whom have had injuries and flaws in their armor that have kind of undermined this season. That, I think, the matchup that decides the game.
Yeah, that's going to be San Francisco. They only have 20 sacks on the defensive side of the ball, just 16 takeaways for the year, 6 interceptions, 10 fumble recoveries. They just don't get a lot of pressure on the quarterback with a 4-man rush. Robert Saleh, the D coordinator, is going to need to load up some blitzes to try and get some pressure on Jalen Hurts. So let's see what Jalen Hurts can do if he has time in the pocket, to hit his receivers, because I don't know how much the run game is going to go. We know the run game for Philly has not been great this year. Teams are loading up to stop the run. And understandably so with what Saquon Barkley did last year. So this may rely on the arm of Jalen Hurts and the time that he has to throw from that side of the ball.
Yeah, the 49ers rush defense, for what it's worth, through weeks 1 through 17, allowed the 6th fewest yards per game in the NFL, and then gave up 180 rush yards on 39 carries to the Seahawks in week 18. So a division foe, lots of things specific there, but something to watch on there. The other thing that I worry about, Dad, is health, because you look at the way it's trending for both teams. Saw images of Lane Johnson back out at practice for Philadelphia. Obviously would be massive for an offensive line that's missed him greatly during his absence with this team. And then 49ers coach Kyle Shanahan tells reporters that left tackle Trent Williams and wide receiver Ricky Pearsall won't practice today, putting their availability in doubt for this Eagles game. I'd imagine it would take an act of God for those guys to not play, but if you're talking about them being severely compromised, and Trent Williams, the last time we saw him, exited the game after the first series, that's a big worry against this Eagles defensive front that might be the best unit in the game with a healthy Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I called that game, me and Ryan Radke, the Bears against the 49ers, and to see Trent Williams running after an interception and grabbing his hammy, you were like, that can't be good if they don't have him. That obviously is tough. But listen, we all know the main person for San Francisco is Christian McCaffrey, right? Whether he's in the backfield, whether he's in the slot, whether he's lined up as a wide receiver, they move him out there a lot to try and figure out what the defense is going to be. Is it going to be zone, going to be man? Who's the matchup? Getting George Kittle back obviously is huge. Juwan Jennings picking up the slack when Kittle has been out. McCaffrey's been there all year. And McCaffrey, by far and away, led this team with 102 receptions. Next closest was Kittle at 57, and then Jennings at 55. So this was one of the bright spots for San Francisco is McCaffrey, with all the injuries they had. Again, him being healthy all year. He is, like last year, Saquon Barkley was the linchpin for any time anybody played against Philadelphia. For San Francisco, it's Christian McCaffrey, and what matchup can they get?
Yeah, and we know that Eagles linebacker room, certainly one of the best in the NFL. Also saw Jalen Phillips, Nakobe Dean back out at practice for them, surrounding Zach Bond and that group that was one of the big strengths and jumps they made last year for Vic Fangio. Looking at this one, I know we'll make predictions Friday going into it. The Eagles do just seem to still be too well built along the trenches, especially if San Francisco's offensive line's compromised and if that group's fully healthy for Philadelphia. We saw what the addition of Jalen Phillips at the trade deadline meant for the way that they could harass quarterbacks. So if they can corral Brock Purdy a bit, I just think the 49ers defense has lost too much over the course of a long season to stand up to Philadelphia, getting back to the postseason and still having their best skill players available in this game to go along with an offensive line that maybe can do just enough at this point.
Yeah, I trust Philly's defense more against the San Francisco offense, even though they have some power in Kittle and McCaffrey, more than I do the San Francisco defense against the Philly offense. I mean, Jalen Carter is, you mentioned Phillips as an edge rusher. This is a team that has 42 sacks on the year. But Jalen Carter, if he's not getting a sack, he's getting pressure. If he's not making a tackle, he's making the running back go east and west before he goes north and south and giving his teammates a chance to make the tackle behind the line of scrimmage. He is an absolute one-man wrecking crew.
Yeah, he's been amazing. We've also seen the difference when he's been off the field. He dealt with procedures on both shoulders this year, obviously was out game one with the spitting incident. And so we've seen the way the defense can drop off without him. I think the injury report's going to go a long way in probably having the say-so on who everyone feels best about heading into kickoff of this.
And I think Jalen Hurts needs to be used in the running game. We keep talking about Baltimore and the injuries to Lamar Jackson, and with his hammy especially, never really got involved in the running game, and how much that would help Derrick Henry and how much it would help Saquon Barkley last year that Jalen Hurts was involved in the running game. You know, this is you win or you go home. You win or you clean out your locker. So I think you got to pull out every asset you have.
100%. I think as we've talked about what's plagued the Eagles offense a lot this year, one of the solutions that we've been waiting for is break the glass on Jalen Hurts. We saw in the Super Bowl what a difference that make, both as a decisive scrambler and someone in the design rushing attack there. And this is, you're absolutely right, the if not now then when time of year, where if all of a sudden you pull that out, man, life has a chance to get a lot easier a lot sooner if that's a steady diet for the Philadelphia Eagles. What they're facing on the other side, we always talk about coaching in these matchups. I think everyone acknowledges what Kyle Shanahan's done this year. Coach of the year worthy. He is the better coach in this matchup, despite the recent Super Bowl for Nick Sirianni. I think just in terms of the imprints that we can see on the outside, the way that he calls the game offensively, and the proof is in the pudding in terms of consistency. The 49ers have made the NFC Championship game in each season that they've made the playoffs under Kyle Shanahan. That's 3 of their last 4 seasons. So when this team is healthy enough to get to the postseason, they seem to find their way to the dance. It's getting over that hump in the championship game in the Super Bowl that still evades Kyle at this point in his career.
Just one of 3 teams in the NFC West that have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl. That division is just stacked.
It's amazing. So, like you said, 1 of 3 teams will get to see the 1 seed Seahawks get to sit and watch everyone else beat their heads into the ground this weekend, while the Rams and the 49ers try and see if they can punch their ticket into the next round here. We are going to try and punch our ticket to the finish line here on Golic and Golic. Again, we'll have more of these previews coming up, 2 games a day tomorrow and Friday as we walk into this weekend. Obviously, college football to get ready for tomorrow as well, with the 2 semifinal games coming up Thursday and Friday night. But let's finish things off here at 4th and Golic. I know you, Dad. I know what you like. You're a man that's simple taste. You want a good ice-cold beer, preferably something local is my father's favorite beer. I don't know if it gets more local than this. The Buffalo Bills, and what was the final game in Highmark Stadium before they move into their new stadium across the street next year, put this out for each member of the media in the home Prescott. A can of their Blizzard Brew made with real purified snow from Highmark Stadium. Fan of that or not, Dad? Where are you at on snow brewed beer as the send-off for the media in the stadium?
Listen, as long as it's not yellow snow, I'm good with it. I'm fine with it. I have no problem.
I mean,
and the first thing I would be doing is I would be going to every media member and saying, "You're going to drink that? You're going to drink that? You're going to drink that?" And it was just like when we used to get beers and away games in the NFL, getting back on the plane. I was like to my teammate.
Stop right there. You were issued beers getting onto the plane as an NFL player during your career. That's what you're telling me.
Yes, you were handed a packet of food and a plastic bag with 2 beers in it. And immediately us beer drinkers would go to the guys that didn't drink and secure their beers as well. And that all worked until a couple of Minnesota coaches got nailed for driving while intoxicated when they landed back in Minnesota. And the NFL realized, we're the bartenders in this. We better stop serving beer. But that doesn't mean I can't go drink the beer up in the press box in Buffalo.
Yeah, if they don't want you drunk at work, they shouldn't put out beer in the press conference. That's just day one stuff here. From issued gear to issued beers. What a beautiful sport that we all play, watch, and love here. Incredible stuff. If anyone in Buffalo wants to send us a couple of those, Dad will obviously take them off your hands. We'll be back tomorrow here to find more snow beer right here on Golic and Golic. Thanks for watching. For more Golic and Golic clips, make sure you subscribe to the FanDuel Sports Network YouTube channel.